Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who is going to be talking about an album, and even though I have positive things to say about it, this is not going to be a typical review. I'm going to be reviewing Haitian Boy Kodak by the artist Kodak Black, and I must say that my take on it is not that this is an amazing, great album that you absolutely have to listen to and that I love more than anything. This is more of a question. Who is Kodak Black? That's a question I've been asking for 5 years, and I think the answer to that question, or the difficulty in answering that question, is informative. Before I go further, I should say that this album, which in some ways seems fairly mediocre, does contain perhaps the best lyric of the last 2 years. So stay tuned to figure out what that is. But let me tell you my story of when I first asked the question, who is Kodak Black? As I often say on this channel, between the years of 2002 and 2018, I paid no attention to music until I started this channel. Simultaneously, I created a class at the university where I teach. Now, for the purposes of today's video, you need to know I do not represent my college, I do not represent any of my employers, but I teach in the Rochester area at a small public college, okay? So at the small public college, I teach a class on French rock and roll and French hip hop music. So I'm very interested in what my students like and what they don't like. And one spring, there was going to be a concert on our small campus, okay? This isn't like some big school with a huge amount of money that can come and hire anybody and anyone will come and, oh, Drake's coming. No. There was going to be the hottest artist in the country was going to be coming to play at our small place. His name was Fetty Wap. I did not know who Fetty Wap is. I currently do not know who Fetty Wap was. I had students in my class literally on the verge of tears because Fetty Wap did not show up to our campus. He did not perform. Apparently, our university was beneath him. Now, it was an interesting moment because my students who were so upset, here they are in this class about hip-hop, and I'm explaining them about the history of French hip-hop and all that, and somehow I don't care who Fetty Wap is. That's my bad. And I listened to a little bit of Fetty Wap at the time, and I just tell them, don't worry. In 3 years, you won't remember who Fetty Wap is. You won't remember being disappointed because you won't even know who he is. Artists like this, they pop up in the hip-hop scene, they show up, they make a big splash, they do something viral, and then they disappear. I asked them for another example of who their favorite artists were. And they gave me a bunch of names, and one of them stood out to me, Kodak Black. As I said, I'm in the Rochester area. Kodak is, of course, the name of the camera company that was created here in Rochester, New York. So I thought, oh, maybe he's from Rochester. No, he's from South Florida. I listened to like 5 seconds of whatever song he had that was big. Skirt, I think is what it was called. Or skirt, or skirt, I don't know what. And I just said, you're going to not know about Kodak Black either. He's not going to matter either. All these people, they're just dust in the wind. And this is the thing. I was wrong to take that opinion. I was being way too dismissive of my students' culture. Here I was asking them to care about Panam City rapping and old school rappers from the outskirts of Paris, and I was not taking the music that they cared about seriously. So hopefully someday I will have a chance to care about Fetty Wap, but I'm not quite sure because Kodak Black is actually much more interesting. The thing is, this style of 21st century celebrity is actually an indictment on our culture and how our culture treats young black men. These kinds of artists appear, they are praised, they are chewed up, and they are spit out. As teenagers, they are rewarded maximally for exhibiting criminal behavior, for behaving in ways that are going to lead to misery and jail and potentially death, whether by overdose, by murder. And then once TMZ and World Star Hip Hop and everybody has sucked them dry, they just discard them. either into the penal system or into the grave, and they wait for the next Kodak Black, the next Fetty Wap, the next Lil whoever to show up and suck their blood. Good. Get rid of them. So the question, who is Kodak Black, is not just a question of who is this one person from South Florida, not from Rochester, who is this rapper who by the age of 16 was already a star, by the age of 22 was already in jail. Who is he? And why does he matter? And does he matter? Is he just one of 1,000 of these kinds of stars that are going to pop up? I mean, hell, by the time I reviewed Lil Uzi Vert and Playboi Carti, I was already getting comments that they were done. And they were like the biggest names you could imagine. What separates Kodak Black from Drake? Why do some artists get more, other artists get less? I don't know. So here I was, not paying attention to Kodak Black in 2015, not paying attention in 2016. And when I was preparing for this video, I thought, well, I've heard his name a lot recently, and I looked up why. I discovered a video by a very talented YouTuber named Trap Lore Ross. And I really appreciate his videos because he talks a lot about the history of hip hop in the last 5 years and presents a lot of things very clearly. Although he might be a part of the problem. Trap Lore Ross might actually be very bad for the world. I don't know. You can put that in the comments if you have thoughts about that or not. But he has this whole thing, this 30-minute video about the stupid crimes of Kodak Black and how Kodak Black is so stupid. And remember, we're talking about the son of Haitian immigrants who grew up in South Florida in very sunny, but in very sunny destitution in a housing project, surrounded by misery, without a father, and then put into a system that rewarded all of his bad behavior. And we're just supposed to sit there and laugh at him as being so stupid. Ha ha ha. Let's laugh at this test case. And one of the things that he said was interesting. He talked about Kodak Black's biggest hit, Zeze. And he said, unless you're living under a rock, you know Zeze. Well, I'm here to tell you, Ross, I am living under a rock. Or at least I was in the summer of 2018 before I started this channel around my 41st birthday in September. I didn't know. I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard a single song by Kodak Black, or at least never paid attention to a single song until I did this video. It also turns out that Kodak Black was pardoned by the ex-president of the United States, Donald Trump. When Trump was in office, I would often say that if he actually delivered on any of his promises to reform the criminal justice system, he would be the greatest president in living memory. This obviously pissed off my friends, and people just said, oh, Sky, you're being polemic, but the criminal justice system is the #1 problem in our country, and he was talking about fixing it. No, he didn't. And he wasn't, and he's not. But the point remains the same. If somebody actually does something to fix this problem, they should be on Mount Rushmore, no matter what other stuff they do, okay? So he didn't do it. He pardoned Lil Wayne, he pardoned Kodak Black. So here we have an album made by the recently, not exonerated, but pardoned Kodak Black. And once again, I ask the question, and that is the nature of this video essay and review. Who is Kodak Black? A reformed criminal? An unrepentant criminal? Is he fame-obsessed? Does he hate fame? One thing I can tell you is there's at least one person who doesn't know who Kodak Black is, and that is Kodak Black himself. On this very short album, he calls himself a mockingbird, a vulture, and a mongoose. He goes by the name of Kodak Black. His real name is Dieu Son Octave. He also is credited as Bill K. Capri, and his last album was Bill Israel, after his apparent conversion to some sect of Judaism. And on this album, we have what I assume will be his most interesting persona, that of the album title, Haitian Boy Kodak. The only reason I'm reviewing this album, the only reason I stopped and I listened more than just hearing the initial trap beats and kind of boring lyrics, was this usage of the word Haitian Boy Kodak. I teach a class. I created a class. Some of the most work I've ever put into anything was I teach a class on the country of Haiti. It was difficult because I knew nothing about Haiti when I created the class. The name of the class is Haiti, the most important country in the world. And if you think I'm joking, I'm not. The history of Haiti is the history of the world. If you do not have a deep understanding of Haitian history, you do not actually understand the earth. You do not understand the world since the New World was found. It is a bizarre inverse story of America that helps you to understand things more clearly. And the way that I teach the class as Haiti being one of the most human places on earth, because there are no true villains and no true heroes. Okay, there are some true villains. There's some French guys in there who are some true villains. But in general, the history of Haiti is a history of people being people, for better and worse. So when I see the cover of this album by Kodak Black, I see him and I see a veve, okay, which is a little symbol that's used in Haitian voodoo, okay, which is not some word that we can just use to describe things that are weird. It's an actual religion which we have to take seriously. It is as funny as saying Catholicism. Okay? It's one of my pet peeves when people use the word voodoo as though it isn't people's belief system, okay? He's sort of dressed like Baron Samedi, one of the, well, definitely the most popular of the Loa, sort of a god / spirit. He's in a cemetery, and he very much looks as though, and he has votive candles, he has a lot of imagery, and he's really emphasizing this idea of him as a part of the Haitian diaspora. And when I teach the Haitian class, the entire last couple weeks is about the Haitian diaspora, about the most mistreated country in the history of the world, the most mistreated people in the history of the world, and the people who got out of it, and what does it say about them, and what do they do, and how does the world receive them? I'll give you a hint, not well. The world does not receive them very well. So the idea of him coming out of jail and releasing an album and having it not be like, I'm free, Trump says I'm free, got that money, all that he comes out and says, I'm a Haitian boy, is really interesting. And of course, as a language teacher, perhaps the most interesting part to me is that he uses a lot of Creole, which I'll be discussing very soon. That's spelled K-R-E, accent aigu, Y-O-L, Haitian Creole. Interestingly, I watched a couple documentaries about him today before this video. It just felt important, you know? And there's another one on YouTube that explains that his name partly comes from the fact he was called Little Black when he was a kid. You know, everything matters, right? Skin tone matters. And especially in Haiti, well, not especially in Haiti, but in Haiti, it definitely matters because it was a symbol of where you were in society when the slave revolt happened and after, okay? During the slave revolt, there were 3 classes. Okay? There was white, mixed, and black, right? And so the darkness of your skin was an indicator of how far away you were from power, how far you were away from the French. So it's both a sort of sign of pride, indicating that you've never been co-opted and that you've always been fighting in the fields and that you're part of the revolution, but also it's often seen as something disparaging, a part of sort of internalized and externalized racism against people with darker skin. Who is Kodak Black? I haven't even talked about one of his songs yet, and here we are, 13 minutes in, and the answer is Kodak Black is very interesting. And he tells us a lot about our hemisphere, okay? About Haiti and about America, all right here in this impossibly young guy, okay? He was born in 1997. He's the same age as my nephew, all right? Now this album, there's nothing particularly great, all right? I'm not trying to tell you this is it. He came out and he made a masterpiece, but it is worth listening to. There's no real hooks, but at the same time, nothing feels really cheap. It's kind of a downbeat album. Frankly, it sounds like an album from someone who spent a lot of time in jail. Somebody who's not coming out saying, here I go, world. Someone who's saying, all right, well, world, I guess here I go. What I'm going to do now So I'm going to give you my homework. This is what I do for every album. I give you a song I want you to listen to as an example of the album. Before I do that, actually, I'm now going to be encouraging you to subscribe to my channel. I like subscribers. And as my daughter misspoke once, please smash that like bucket and tell me in the comments what you like about this bucket. So their homework is going to be the real outlier on this album. It's called Oracle. I put a link to it up there. And Oracle is a cappella. It is just his voice with some kind of auto-tune. Kind of singing a pretty weak melody, frankly, that's just getting through these words. As I said, I'm from the Rochester area, at least I am now, originally from Boston, but I'm here now. And the great blues singer Son House lived in Rochester as well. I'm not trying to say Kodak Black is as talented or important as Son House. I am trying to tell you that Son House was able to carry a tune with no instruments, was able to sing about the African-American experience, suffering just one generation after the abolition of slavery. He was able to put his pain in a translatable musical way that felt so raw, you felt as though you were in the room with him. Kodak Black does the same thing. Now listen, I know Son House is a giant and a genius and all that, okay? I'm not saying that Kodak Black is that. But this song, this very painful song about life in prison, about people he remembers who have been in prison, who have been killed, about the struggle for money, about his relationship to his family. It is this primal scream of being in the justice system, of being in the unjust American state. In 50 years, when auto-tune has either gone away or has been around for so long, this song will stand out. This song will be studied. You just put it right here. Oh, what do you mean, Sky? I'm a professor. In 50 years, I'll be teaching this song. I'll be 90 years old, I'll still be teaching. Because once you get over the fact that it's just some guy who's 22 years old right now and he's singing with an auto-tuner, right? It's actually this very, very powerful song. Real pain. It's a drone, barely a melody. I be sharing the same pain with all the lifers. Tonight I'm pulling out the champagne for all the lifers. Not even rhyming the same word, except he does a lot of sort of interior rhyming, so rhyming same pain with champagne. And here's the lyric that I think may be the most important lyric of the past 2 years. Sitting in a cell, N-words, scared they might catch corona. There it is. The corona cases in our prisons have been terrible. It's run rampant through our prison system, through our overcrowded, unjust political system. This virus, which we're caring so much about and we think about, do we think about the people who are trying to reform, who we have put aside and make sure they don't get a disease that cripples them for the rest of their life? Is this something that you've heard more than one story about? Is this something that we've thought about cramming people together and then giving them a disease and then seeing what happens? Scared they might catch corona. Right here. You want America in the 21st century in one line, it's right here. Incarceration problems, over-incarceration of young black men, mixed with the abandonment of young black men, mixed with the inequity of the distribution of the threat of corona. All right there. Follows it up with, like, how the hell am I gonna cry if I ain't got a shoulder? He's alone. He doesn't have anyone to be with. He can't even cry. There's a lot of emo rap, and it doesn't always land with me because it's usually like, she broke my heart, now I'm going to drink cough syrup. But this is not that. This is like a real pain. Somebody who's fearing for his life, and he has no one to cry. And then he throws in some Creole. Mwen pote monte, men poete me monte. I lifted you up. I lifted you up. And then some more Creole, c'est la vie, which is also French, that's life. This pain that he's feeling and trying to lift himself up and trying to feel some kind of safety or happiness, but he can't feel it. They take these shackles up off me so I can dance. Is that why he was freed? So he can dance? Tandis que me pensée ou me ramène me vrai, my heart feels as if you don't love me. There it is. What an amazing song. What a meaningful song that tells us so much about life right now. I'm going to go through the rest of the album very quickly. First track is called Round the Roses. One of the most bizarre conceits for a song. First of all, he is a mumble rapper, I guess. I guess that's sort of his thing. That's maybe the reason I dismissed him in 2016, because I like rappers who enunciate. But he talks about, I'm going to give her semi-pipe, which means he is going to be having sex with a flaccid penis. The whole song is about giving semi-pipe, but tomorrow she'll get the full thing. Who the hell raps about impotence? Who like, this is the opening song on the album. Yo, I'm impotent. What? But tomorrow I might not be. And it's played like for bravado. Like, I'm impotent. Like, what is going on here? This really minimalist beat, almost not a beat at all by Murda Beats. I don't know. Kodak Black is pretty interesting. I have never heard a rapper brag about sexual dysfunction, right? But that's what he's doing. He also mentions that you need a corona test before you come over, which means, Trap Lord Ross, no matter how stupid, no matter how funny it is that he bought another gun despite the fact he's on parole, and he bought another gun despite the fact he's on parole, and he bought another... Okay, that is pretty stupid. But no matter how stupid he is, he's smarter than Eric Clapton. He's taking corona seriously. I'd much rather a world with 1,000 Kodak Blacks than even one Eric Clapton. The next track, Z Looks Jamaican, another kind of barely song. I don't even know what Z means. Z is some kind of code word, like daddy is Z, there's too much Z, you look like a Z. I don't know what a Z is. I'm old. I'm not going to look it up. You tell me in the comments, what's a Z? He also says, she lets me pee in her beehole. Is that a thing? I don't know all the mores that exist. I don't know all the kinks that exist in the world. But pee in her beehole? Is that something you have? Is that something people do? Actually, do not put that in the comments. I don't know. He also talks about Siri speaking patois. That's kind of nice. A little homophobic stuff on here. He uses the F slur, not great. Talks about killing a bati boy, which is, Jamaican way of saying killing a gay person. Pretty unnecessary. Next track is called Basement on Fire. This is cool because he quotes the Haitian president and revolutionary and part of both the answer and problem to all of Haitian history, Dessalines, burn houses and chop heads. He gives the Haitian and he says it in English. And that's an interesting idea, going back to this Haitian history. The one thing about Haiti is the people of Haiti are acutely aware of their revolutionary history and they live with it every single day, and it is not... Like, only America thinks even half as much about their revolutionary history as Haiti does. But even then, it's not close. Maybe this is the best track. Maybe some of the best rhymes. No chorus, ridiculously short. Then we get to Djambem. And this is a fully multilingual song in Haitian Creole, that's with a K, and English. Sweet kind of guitar, trap drums, pedal steel. And this is the thing, and I talk about this when I teach my class on French hip-hop, which mixes together often languages from Africa and French, is that the process of including your native tongue into English or into French, whatever the dominant language is, creates an in-group. The in-group that it creates is an in-group which society treats as an out-group, thereby validating the power and the importance of that in-group. So if you don't speak Haitian Creole, that's with a K, if you don't speak Haitian Creole, you don't understand the whole song. If you only speak Haitian Creole and you don't speak English, you don't understand the whole song. Who understands the whole song? Immigrants, children of immigrants, these people who are underrepresented in culture, underrepresented in society, they get it. This is their reward. This is their treat. It's not for us. It's not for the people who don't speak English and who don't speak Creole. It's for this very small group of people. And that's why in French rap it's so important, because French rap is primarily made by first and second generation immigrants who are largely discriminated against, officially and unofficially, by the French state. And this is that. It's very catchy, it's very nice, and he repeats over and over again, I'm a vulture, not a mockingbird. Keeps on going on about this. The next song is called Dirty K, which is interesting because he talks about how he recorded a song with Post Malone and Adam Levine, but neither of them have come out yet. And you get the sense he's tainted, he's been abandoned, he's no longer hot. And that's even what Trap Lord Ross talks about in his video, that if he spends too long in jail, he will no longer be relevant. So, I don't know. Is he relevant? Is this album going to be popular? Is he done? Next time I teach that class and I say, hey, how about Kodak Black? Are people going to give the Trap Lord Ross snicker? Are they just going to laugh? I don't know. In here, he talks about, it would change my life if Donald Trump reduced my sentence. So maybe he wrote the song before he was freed? I don't know. He says he's tired of the fame and the internet, a very consistent theme of not knowing how you feel about fame. The next track is called Mafioso, a very kind of mournful trap beat. Here he just goes on and on about whether or not he's a mongoose, because mongoose can be bitten by a snake but still survive. But then while he's saying this, he interrupts himself to say, but I'm a vulture. But a mongoose can be bitten by snakes and he'll just keep getting money, but I'm a vulture. But I'm a vulture. He really insists on this vulture thing without even developing it. It's part of this interesting idea of who is Kodak Black. A very great mixture of Haitian Creole and English, again, as well, for that in-group. It's nice having it on a little bit of a harder song, because the other song that's mostly in Haitian Creole is a little bit more of a soft song. And here in this song, he rhymes mafioso and fiancé. This is not good. According to the rap laws, but maybe according to other laws, it's good. Because like, oso, anse, it's actually rhyming the middle of the words as opposed to the end of the words. It makes some kind of sense. The album ends with a track called Don't Leave Me. It has this guitar playing, kind of a fractured song, and some bad lyrics. Count on me like a basketball, I'll stay around, and I got to deal with Chrysler, I'm going to get out of Dodge. But still, it's this nice kind of mournful tone and the sense of being left. Like Don't Leave Me and Mafioso talking about friends who have left him, and Dirty K talking about how Adam Levine and Post Malone won't release their songs. Which, by the way, I would rather a world with 1,000 Kodak Blacks than half of an Adam Levine. There's this real theme of abandonment, and there's this theme of longing and trying to figure out who you are and who is he. So, in conclusion, the answer to the question is, who is Kodak Black? Who is Kodak Black? There's the camera.